entries, 13 of them are foreign boats, and making it a truly international event. Rob Cook went down to the quayside and put together this report.
South Africa is not only back into international yachting events, but for the first time in many years, the Royal Navy have entered an official team sailing a South African chartered Lavranos 43-footer. 3 jumps ahead will be skippered by Commander Tony Hyam.
Although the yacht is entered under the burgee of the Royal Naval Sailing Association, myself and my crew are here on duty, and so we certainly very much represent the Royal Navy on this occasion. We've got a lot of computery which we brought from Great Britain, lots of black boxes being fitted to my yacht at the moment. We're polishing the bottom now, so it'll be incredibly smooth and fast in the light conditions that we're expecting. So I think we'll do outstandingly well, and I think we'll be giving some of the larger yachts quite a fright.
Winner of the 1977 Admiral's Cup and veteran of the 71 and 73 Rio races, Tony Hyam will be assisted by a crew of 7 servicemen and women, including the Royal Navy's leading yachtswomen.
The crew are not just experienced yachtsmen. Some of them are nuclear submarine engineers, electronics experts. I have one crew member who's a helicopter pilot, a search and rescue helicopter pilot. So a complete spectrum across the board of naval experience.
Then this is possibly the first contact with the United Kingdom in the sporting arena.
Well, I don't know of another, and I'm certainly very excited and very honoured to be here. And we, from that point of view, of course, will be more than doubly trying to do our best. But it's certainly a great thrill to be back on South African soil.
To race rules, the dark horse of the fleet, Sea Rose, was designed with the intention of taking line honours. But thought to be too light for the allowed sail-to-weight ratio, the 14.2-metre catamaran had to be reweighed.
This boat was designed by Simonis to come out pretty close to that ratio, so the weight is very important. So when we put the boat in the water, the guys didn't believe the weight that Simonis calculated. He did a sort of scientific calculation. The boat weighed just over 9 tons, 9.3 tons to be precise.
The lighter the craft, the faster she'll go. With an all-up weight of 11 tons, Sea Rose was well over design specs, with the weight of the lifting block and pulley and crew still having to be taken into account.
As you've seen, as you witnessed now, it is in fact over 9.3 tons. It's 10, we've settled on 10, just over 10 tons, 10.4 tons. And for us, it's a bit heavier than what we actually expected, but it means we can put some more sail area on it. So in a way, that's maybe going to be to our advantage.
With more than 90 boats participating in the Rothmans Cape to Rio, safety is an all-important factor. Peter Music of the Cruising Association has detailed specific items that should be taken aboard a life raft in the event of an emergency.
We are looking at 2 big factors. Firstly, that the radio is working, that they have a 400-mile range. And secondly, at safety of, should there be an accident like the grab bag that you see here, which if they grab only this and take nothing else, then they will survive 30 or 40 days at sea. Anything else that they get into the life raft should act as a bonus. The number 1 prerequisite is water. There is a specified amount of 2 liters per crew member in an emergency container that they mustn't touch during the race, and that has to have a line on it and be attached to the life raft. Then we also have a small water maker here that they can use. We have a portable VHF set, which has a 25-mile range. And then, of course, very important things are things like fishing tackle, a gaff here, and a glove so that you don't cut your hand, clothing. The guys may go over the side with practically nothing on because it's a hot weather race, and at night it gets cold. Something of interest, too, is maybe a turtle saw. If they catch a turtle, a knife won't cut it open, so they can cut it open with a saw. Everything goes into these 3 containers, plus the water. The life raft gets attached to the boat and thrown over the side. One man gets into the life raft and everything gets then clipped onto the line to the life raft so that the man is catching all the 3 containers and the water containers. As I said, everything else that they take is a bonus. You know, usually they grab their money and their passports, but you can't eat that.
Do you then actually make sure that every boat has this type of equipment to take along with them in the event of an emergency?
Yes, Rob, we have a 6-page comprehensive list here, and we do go through it thoroughly, and no boat is left out of the harbour until it's 100%. We don't let a 98% boat go.
Closely linked to the safety at sea is the NSRI. Members of this volunteer rescue service are sailing as active crew members aboard IGI Sea Rescue, skippered by Dave Abramovitz. The NSRI have always excelled in providing a professional rescue service and in assisting yachts in the many yachting events to have been held in South African waters. Their participation is certainly a first and an opportunity for them to prove their sailing skills and racing ability. The South Atlantic Trophy not only goes to the winner of the IMS class, but also represents a strong bond of friendship that has been forged with another country. Linked as they are, Cape Town and Rio de Janeiro make the ideal starting and finishing points for a successful ocean race. With 3,600 miles of warm trade wind sailing, yachtsmen are being offered the opportunity of participating in what must be one of the finest long-distance events on the sailing calendar.
Baie dankie. Ja, heerlijke dag in die Kaap. Ek hoop het gaan 'n heerlijke dag uitdraai. Warm geweest die afgelope paar dae. Vanmôre hier waar ons is, waai die wind so effens, maar dis maar normaal. Ek dink die manne met die seiljagte wil die wind hê, want dis iets wat mense nodig het.
Exactly what they want. And in fact, if we have the weather that we had when we arrived yesterday, it's very, very hot. The noise in the background, all the sails picking up the wind, which is a lovely sound. We really are right down here at the sea. We're not just on our own, we've got Saki with us as well, who's going to do a weather forecast, and we've got lots of interesting interviews with people who are going to be doing the race.
Ja, ons gaan gesels met mense soos John Levine, een van die organiseerders. Ons gaan gesels met Bertie Lee, onder andere John Martin, wat oor die volgende paar dae vir ons verslae gaan doen deurgaans oor die vordering van die jagte soos hulle.
And yeah, to win a race, you know, anything away from your country into somebody else's country is always a huge thrill. And yeah, the guys got something to look forward to by getting to Rio de Janeiro.
Racing in the line honours boat, that's a bit different from racing in the sort of social racers class. How important is putting your crew together for, you know, if you're racing really all out?
You know, compatibility at sea is one of those things that you can never really fathom or gauge before you leave here. Some people leave and remain friends for life, and some people get to the other side and don't speak a word to each other after that. So compatibility is a major thing, and you would generally like to know the crew that you're sailing with well before you leave. And then leadership, you know, plays a massive part in this type of racing. Keeping people together in the heat of the day and, you know, the heat of the moment in terms of the racing. And so compatibility is a major thing.
This is noisy in the background here. This is one wild wind that's blowing, good or bad?
Well, the weather pattern hasn't really settled down. At the moment, we're gusting here at about, I would say, 40, maybe 45 knots. Tomorrow could be quite a rock and roll show, as we say, you know, maybe a dropped mast or something. We've had that before. But certainly the weather pattern hasn't settled, and it is a bit gusty at the moment.
What sort of conditions would you like for the start?
I think generally anybody doing a long distance race would like to start off in moderate conditions.
Well, thank you very much. And with me, I've got John Levine, skipper of Obelix, and also chairman of the committee organising the Cape to Rio. Now, we've had you on television a few times on Good Morning South Africa over the last week or so. It's the last day before the big race. Has it all come together? Are you happy with the way it's gone?
Jan, it's been a fantastic event. We've got 90 entries over here. You can feel the buzz, the excitement as you walk around the harbour. I think everybody's pretty well prepared. The wind's blowing a little hard this morning, and I hope it's not quite as hard as that tomorrow morning. But I think we've got a good event on our hands, and everybody's well prepared and well organised.
Talking about the weather conditions, the forecast calls for 15-knot winds, possibly a little stronger.
Did you say 15 knots?
15, 1-5, and possibly a little stronger. Clear skies. How does that, you know, affect you?
That would be a wonderful, wonderful forecast if we're going to get 15 to 20. Then we've got quite a separate fleet, but sailing at the same time for cruising monohull yachts. And then for the first time ever, we've got a racing fleet separate, but also at the same time for catamarans. And obviously we'd like to do well in the catamarans, and obviously we'd like to get there quickly. Just by way of comparison, this is a 43-foot boat, and she would have to get into...
Do you see this class, the multi-hulls, as becoming very much a racing class in its own and a very popular class in the future?
The answer to that's both yes and no. The little bit I've seen of it, I think there's a definite niche for multi-hull boats. I think that for a man going cruising in the trade wind belt, in other words, downwind where the winds aren't too hard, and who's going into less populated areas like the Caribbean islands and things like that, I think there's a lot to be said for multi-hull. You've got a lot of space, we're standing on this broad, expansive deck, and so forth. On the other side of the spectrum, on the pure racing side, there's no question about it, multi-hulls are very, very fast, and yes, when they design the racing boats, I'm sure that today they're very strongly built. But as a general all-purpose boat, I don't believe they'll ever displace the monohulled yacht.
Let's talk about
On, and for a hot Cape Town, it's chilly down here. We've both got jackets on, as you can see. Rob, the boat, if people are looking for it in the official brochure, has had its name changed.
That's right. This boat is a maxi, and it was called Panther. And a month ago, Aegis Insurance put money in and sponsored the boat for the race.
You're on the computer rated as fifth best.
That's right. The computer rating system works out the theoretical speed of all boats. The fastest boat in this race is Broomstick, and we are rated number 5. So for us to beat any of the boats that are faster than us, we're going to have to sail better than them.
Do you think you will?
This boat will go particularly well in light weather. That's right, but that was a few years ago. 17 years ago was our last Cape to Rio race, which I did on de Bullamanzi. And so we'll follow the same route as we did then.
Now, it's inevitable that one does talk about the crew. I know the other yachtsmen are all talking about their crews, but you're almost as tightly knit as a family.
That's right. The nucleus of the crew on this boat sailed on a 34-footer for the last 4 years. So we're very well practiced in sailing together.
When you say that, does that mean communication is much easier?
That's right. You have an understanding of how everybody operates, and, you know, at night when things go wrong, you can work together as a team without having to say very much.
What sort of things do you eat?
We've got very good food on this boat because we've got a big deep freeze. We've got a lot of frozen food, and we're expecting to eat very well.
Is that not one of the problems, taking bulk food? I think, for instance, of fresh water. That must take up a lot of room, and it's heavy.
Well, every boat has to take 30 litres per person for the race.
Is that minimum?
That's a minimum requirement, and all boats will be taking that amount. And then whether you take dehydrated food or frozen food doesn't make that much difference, because you have to take the water to make up the dehydrated food anyway.
This route, you were saying a little earlier before we started the interview that it's a nice one to do.
Look, the trade winds are really the best sort of sailing you can get.
Now, what do you mean by best sailing? To a landlubber, what does that mean?
Well, it means you're sailing fairly close to the tropics, so it's warm, and you're getting very consistent winds blowing from the southeast.
from the early days to now, you know, if you take 17 years, a lot of development has taken place, even in the technology of the yachts.
You know, the sails, the designs, and so much faster, and the equipment on board, you know, the wind instruments, the radios, just everything. I mean, it's like everything in life, you know, we've got spaceships, and it's happened all around us.
The old fogies always say it was better in our day. Is it more difficult now? Was it more difficult then? Is it easier to win these days?
I would think when the chaps were sailing around the world in the square riggers and they didn't have charts, that must have been difficult, getting into little bays and not knowing where the rocks were. And today everything's, you know, we've got charts for every little spot, and it's so much easier. We've got echo sounders. Those days they used the lead line and used to throw it down up on the bow and pull it up and see what the depth was. So it's so much easier, really.
Bertie, in the book Rio 71, written by Wilhelm Grutter and Gerard Last, you're in here with Voortrek. I see the skipper was Mickey Thomas.
Mickey Thomas, yes, commander in the Navy. Possible, and Rio's a great place.
For a party?
Always.
What's the first thing you do when you get there, Bertie? Have a cold beer?
A cold beer and then shower, and then you meet the guys. And it's really super, and Rio's got a great yacht club.
How well do you know the boat you're on?
Well, it's Harbour Island is the boat I use in the Round the World race. So
It's your home?
yeah, for the last three years.
And your crew?
Crew, a great bunch of guys. I've got
Family?
five on board now. So 3 young guys, and very keen, and 2 sort of guys just a bit younger than I am, and that's the balance.
Are you telling us you're going to be the old man of the sea in this boat?
No.
Bertie, you've been one of the first entries. You actually entered in 91 already for this race, but it was touch and go that you were actually going to go, because, you know, you've still...
Yeah, I got back and I wasn't sure whether it'd be, you know, right, and I had some x-rays done, and doctor said it was fine, and I've got to keep this on for the race. I'm not going to take a chance, and it's super to be in the race.
What actually happened to this leg of yours?
I was driving home one evening and it was raining and I saw a shadow in the road and I braked, skidded, and as I corrected, I rolled into the golf course. Accident.
It was a very bad accident
Short,
that you almost
down.
lost it, didn't you, Bertie?
Sure, just twice wanted to amputate, and but it could have been worse.
Yeah, well, you've got it. Now, with this special cast, does it mean they can tie a rope to you and you can go jump and have a swim?
No, I hate getting wet. Really.
Well, you're going the right place. You're not going to get wet. This is the race to go on.
And with 5 guys on board, as soon as I get a bit of spray, I'll go down below.
Tell me, they get together well.
Yeah, I think crews are very important on very long races. This isn't that long a race. It's 3,600 miles. It's not like a Whitbread race or something like that. But I really think crew compatibility is quite important. Our crews have been sailing together for a while, so hopefully we won't be dumping someone off on the island in Trinidad when we go around.
Well, Lilith, good luck for the race.
Thank you very much.
And we'll be watching out for you at the party in Rio. We hope to get footage of that as well. Well, lots has changed in yachting since the last Cape to Rio yacht race. The yachts have become much more sophisticated, very expensive, and when you have an expensive yacht, you really do need sponsorship. So we're going to have a look at part of this, the big ocean sailing sponsorship, and Rob Cook compiled a report on just some aspects of the competitors. And by
The Spinnaker, making her not only the longest yacht in the race, but also powered by one of the largest sails, enabling the boat and crew to take full advantage of this downwind race. This will undoubtedly give skipper Bruce Tedder and his outstanding crew the extra horsepower that they will need to break the line on his record of 17 days. But it's not a straight dash across the South Atlantic, as the boats will have to head north in order to miss the dreaded high-pressure area. Lyneth Beckley, who crewed during the last South Atlantic race, has a vast amount of experience and knowledge of weather patterns and routing.
Well, essentially, you have to leave Cape Town and go to an island called Ilha de Trinidad. You have to leave that to port, to your left-hand side, and then go to Rio. So if you do a straight line from Cape Town to the island, it's a distance of about 2,600 miles. But most skippers won't be following that route because it's a very dangerous route, because it's fraught with light airs, because you have to go through the center of the high-pressure system, which is situated roughly about here in the South Atlantic Ocean. So you have very little wind in the center of the high-pressure system. But around the high, the winds blow in an anti-clockwise direction around this high, and that would give you very nice following winds, southeast trade winds, which is what all the skippers are aiming to get for the race. Hoist your spinnaker, use the southeast trade winds to get yourself a bit north into the Atlantic, then you turn...
Have been made aboard to make it easier for yourselves?
Well, firstly, we have a compass installed, which is a talking compass that speaks to us.
You can program your direction, and as soon as you go off course, it makes a noise.
We've also made a braille chart. It's been designed at the Pioneer School in Worcester for us, and on which we can plot our course, which would be very nice. And I think that's the best way of learning in any case about navigation and whatever.
You obviously are promoting a cause and showing other handicapped people and unsighted people that something can actually be done with their lives.
Yeah, well, we actually...
Another favorite in the Cape to Rio. Designed by world-famous yachting architect Ed Dubois, Zest has been specially adapted for the race.
Yes, when we decided to do the race 18 months ago, building a brand new IMS racer, which was a terribly costly exercise, we took the next best option of finding a good IRR boat, which had a good record, and converting it to the IMS rule. And we looked around the UK and found Spartan, previously known as Pocket Battleship, which had been successful. We discussed the conversion with Ed Dubois, the original designer of the boat, and came to the conclusion that she would convert reasonably easy to an IMS boat and have a competitive rating.
Whoever wins it will be from our class, and it's not going to be hours or days, but it's going to be a matter of minutes. So the people who can drive the boat the hardest, the fastest, they're going to be there, and it's going to definitely be one of us in our class.
Well, with me I've got Brent Sender, who's the skipper of Flix Ambre Solaire. And I think a bit of a dark horse, this boat of yours, because there's not much information out there, and I think quite a few people are underrating your boat, actually.
Yes, I think so. The boat has a great track record. She was launched a couple of years back and campaigned very heavily as under the name Club Mykonos. won almost every single race she sailed in. I think she's been extremely well prepared for this race. We're sailing with an excellent crew, a lot of experience. I myself have done, this will be the 4th transatlantic race that I've done, and several of the guys with me have done many thousands of miles of transocean racing. So I think we're very confident. I think we're going to hang in and push the guys who are the so-called favourites.
Was there a bit of a touch and go before you could actually go for the race because of sponsorships?
No, I think we sat around and discussed it and said, well, we've got to go anyway, that we've got this great boat and a great team of guys, and we must go, and the sponsor will help put some extra equipment aboard, which is exactly what we've done.
And there we have the beautiful sight of the Table Bay again with all the boats on the water. Jerry, this could be a dangerous situation with so many spectator boats mingling in with the actual racers.
Yes, it could. It's always a worry for the organiser. Happily, the wind has gone down by about 10 knots, and so I think that some of the pressure will have been eased, but everybody's got to be wary.
We saw John Levine there earlier. This is
David Bromitz's boat, IGIC Rescue. They've got a joint sponsorship with the sponsor and then raising funds for National Sea Rescue Institute. The boat's an aluminium boat of 65 foot in length. Sports a modern 2-rudder system to give a better tracking facility. It's got a good brand new range of sails on board there, and David himself
had brought South Africa to the attention of the world with a splendid second across the line in the 1968 Observer Transatlantic Race. The rest is history.
At a function in Admiralty House in Simonstown, Admiral Bierman put the idea that we shouldn't stop here, we should go on to something else. And out of that came the idea of the first Cape to Rio race.
There were 62 entries on the start line in '71, and the race had attracted worldwide attention. Competitors of the caliber of Britain's Robin Knox-Johnson, a legend to this day, and Leslie Williams, who co-skippered the 72-foot ketch Ocean Spirit, added luster to an already competitive fleet. The race, essentially a downwind run along the traditional trade wind route across the South Atlantic, is considered an easy event by world standards. But for many local yachtsmen, this, their first trans-ocean race, represented a giant leap into the unknown.
I was in a yacht Pioneer with 4 others, and at midnight on the 11th day, we hit a whale. And in 15 to 20 minutes, the yacht sank and left us afloat in the middle of the Atlantic, very lonely place in a rubber life raft. So although I was chairman of the race committee, I was functionally out of action. Amazing luck, we were only adrift for 19 hours, and so physically we suffered very little, although mentally we had a good look at the future. But an American freighter, the Potomac, just steamed up, and well, we thought she was going to pass us, but they spotted us and they altered course. We set off a daylight flare, and they came with a lifeboat and picked us up.
And sweeping irresistibly to the front of the field is the British ketch Ocean Spirit.
Knox, Johnson and Williams steered Ocean Spirit to line honours in 23 days.
And the finishing 9. At the helm, Robin Knox-Johnson may feel truly proud of the superb performance of his crew and vessel.
But the overall winner on handicap would be the 43-foot Albatross 2, skippered by John Goodwin, who came in 3 days later. In the second Cape to Rio race in 1973, there would be only 39 starters. The race was a triumph for Dutchman Kees Brunziel, who took both line and handicap honours in his 53-foot ketch Stormy. But it is the 1976 race that will be remembered both for the worsening political situation that nearly caused its cancellation and the size of the fleet on the starting line.
1976 was the 3rd Rio race. The thing had built up a memento by that stage. The event itself was part of the Atlantic Triangle, so that we had participating in this race something like 20 or more boats, which really weren't, strictly speaking, part of our race in the sense that they originated and were sailing another race but joined up with us.
We gathered a fleet. It had grown in interest, and the 129 yachts here, some 17 foreign countries were represented, some with more than one entry. And this whole fleet was assembled, and a few days before the race was due to start, at a New Year's Eve function where all the organizers were gathered about late hours of the evening we heard that the race had been cancelled.
Fortunately, the race was saved.
Dat was Jeremy Lange en Dennis Spence en hulle Smirnoff Pit Specials wat die mense vermaak onder andere oor die baai met die byna 1000 toeskouerbote plus dan natuurlik die jagte wat gaan deelneem aan die 1993 Rothmans Kaap na Rio wedvaart. Quite a sight we have here, quite a few people coming out to see the yachts off as they cross the line and set sail for Rio de Janeiro. Interesting to have the aeroplanes over the yachts. The principle is the same.
And I'm not sure who's more mad. See, the wind now is sort of steadied in here at about 15 to 18 knots. Perfect conditions for a start. They give everybody time to settle down, get across to the Milnerton mark, a distance of some 3 miles, and then run off down past Robben Island with the spinnakers. So, all in all, a glorious day for the start of this race.
Cool. Let's take a look at what Eric Bonges has to say.
We have shapes which in fact signal what the yachts should do. At 10 minutes before the start of the race, we pull up a yellow shape, and then 5 minutes before a blue shape, and then finally this red shape which you see before you here. This is all done to very strict timing. The most important person on the bridge, of course, is the line judge, who basically is in charge of the bridge. That's Dennis Woodward, very experienced man. The second most important, and some people say even the most important, is the timekeeper. And in this case, that's DC Bird. Somebody with tremendous concentration and a fairly penetrating voice, so that when everybody's getting all excited about the start, there's at least somebody who's telling you, now's the time to put the sign up. We have guns with every signal that goes up. And the guns are merely to draw attention to the signals.
Part line that we're actually looking at. There goes the first one. What shape is that now going up?
That's the 10-minute gun shape going up, ready for the 10-minute gun.
Yeah, we've still got a few minutes to go. I think, you know, precaution's better than cure. So they're just getting ready there. Eric Wells, our Secretary of CASA.
Talking about the start, let's have a look at a graphic. Oh, there we are. That's Aegis Insurance.
There's somebody going under her stern.
Different colour sails. That was Hansa Platner's Morning Glory to leeward of him. And of course the boat with the brown sails will then be able to push the bigger boat out of the way, so to speak, in terms of the rules.
And they're taking off their speed by letting their Genoa sheet go slack.
What they're actually doing there, as we say, is stalling the boats to make sure they're up at the line and ready to turn hard to port and fill the sails and get going. About a minute to go, and that's, you can see Hansa Platner's boat to the right there on the line. Real professional start. Just behind it, Highgate Ostrich doing well.
You can see the very tall mast on the Aegis boat there.
Yeah, the problem there is they've got 35 footers with 75 footers, and the speed differential is humongous. So the guy on the big Aegis boat is having a real trouble getting his act together there.
Well, we've got less than 60 seconds to go now to the start for the IMS class.
Yeah, it's a funny way to start. I mean, a lot of the boats are just flogging there. Normally you build up boat speed so that you hit the line at 1.5 minutes to go. You've got your boat speed up and you're away, because the acceleration of the bigger boats is not so great, and you really want that power as you get across the line.
I think, yes.
There we got good old Fur Trekker 2 coming through there. Cypress Fur Trekker, naval ensign flying.
Lovely shot.
Reef in the main, and they're the chap on the coffee grinder. In other words, the winch that turns the sail in, brings the sheet in. Good as any aerobics class, I'd see.
You can literally sense the tension on board that boat at the moment.
It's always a big responsibility to sail a big boat, and with the sponsorships, and you're sailing for your navy or for your country, and we're just about there, are we?
We're just about there, a couple of seconds to go.
And after the gun, listen and hope you don't hear a further gun.
The boat to the extreme right to weather there, the big one, that's the Parker Penn boat, and probably I would say the best position, although he hasn't got boat speed on at the moment. And just about there, and I can see IGI Sea Rescue very far behind him, probably about 8 boat lengths. And there we have it, start of the 1993 Cape to Rio race. See the boats well heeled over there. jostling for position.
And we're talking about 47 yachts in the IMS class.
Now, it was interesting. I'm surprised that David Abramus took a very conservative start. In fact, he's very far behind, and Parker Penn's well up to weather. I can't quite sight Broomstick at the moment.
Yes. They've all got reasonably clean wind. There's enough wind for everybody.
Namsi Challenge in the middle of the fleet. That's the start gun, start shape. See the massive spectator craft rushing to get advancing up on the weather side to bring more ballast stability to the boat. Well heeled there, Jerry.
She's not reefed.
Really powering along, using all 75 foot of the water line. You can see the twin rudder system.
One boat has been recalled. We're just trying to figure out which one it is. So somebody jumped the gun, which we said earlier on would be a disastrous position for that skipper.
That's Namsi Challenge just going, the boat's crossing the bow of Namsi Challenge. It looks like a cruising boat to me, one of the spectator boats. So we've got Namsi Challenge going at a good lick.
And they're picking up quite a bit of speed.
Getting in the stronger wind.
There's Parker Penn well out in front. Really good start and really using that waterline. And she's doing probably in the order of 12, 13 knots at the present time. Of course, while the IMS boats have started, the next class to start are now jockeying for positions because the start gun for the IMS class is the 5-minute gun for the next class.
One might ask why you're in the other class. It's really a matter of philosophy. Either you're a racing man or a cruising man. If you're a racing man, you have your boat measured in a different way and enter into a racing IMS handicap. But nevertheless, among the cruising fleet, there are the same rivalries.
Yeah, and then we've got Wizard, one of the IMS favorites to give Morning Glory a go, and it's locally built, skippered by Yanni Revers. It's a cruising racer, but it turned out to be a very fast boat and came with an ace of winning Rothmans Week this year.
She won the long-distance race.
Blades upsets the sail trim, and but you live with it. That's one of the facts of life.
John, they're approaching the turning mark now. There'll be a lot of activity with the bowman and the spinnakers and the spinnaker poles.
Well, at this stage, I think the chaps are still sitting on the weather rail trying to...
2 seconds to go. And there goes the gun for the cruising class. The monohull's going off.
Wider boats, which Angelo Duvanis has developed, are exceptionally powerful in this particular condition, where the wind is something like 80 degrees from the bow of the boat, and what we call power reaching, that extra width in the stern of the boat, like we had on Allard Bank, really helps. But that also has the disadvantages in the lighter airs, dead downwind. There we can see the first yacht with the spinnaker pole up. Round the mark, there she goes, Parker Penn's. And we should see the spinnaker any minute now. So she really got a huge lead in that short time. We can see Broomstick coming up to the mark as well now, followed by Aegis, and then to the right of the screen, just gone off. Well, there they are, the Genoa flipping behind the mainsail, spinnaker nowhere near. There they start hoisting it now. It's a long way to the top of the mast. The mast should be some 95 foot long. So some exercise for the crew.
See the 3 spreaders there clearly on the mast.
Cuts a fine wake. She needs wind. I think that she'll suffer in the lighter airs, but today is specifically suited for her design. Taking a fair time to get the spinnaker set. If you want to win races, you've got to be a bit quicker than that. Every mistake, Jerry, you make,
well, indeed.
Minutes, huh?
Yes.
There, Broomstick spinnaker going up. You can see it, she's filled. That's more or less what you want to do. That's the sort of timing you would need from the mark to get a spinnaker set.
That's Broomstick of Hanno Töteberg.
Lots of shouting, lots of sweat, and off it goes.
Lots of drill, lots of experience.
Trick now, of course, is to get the Genoa down because that is influencing the spinnaker. That's why it collapsed. And you'll see, there they go, they start dropping the Genoa. Also, you want to keep as much weight out of the bow as possible so you don't send that many people forward. Really powering along beautifully there. I would imagine she's doing anything up to 16 knots now.
Yes. Not quite enough wind for surfing.
Well, you know, Jerry, as you get out in the ocean and you pick up the swell, then I suppose...
Indeed, indeed.
And Namsi at 64, and you can see on a straight power reach, they've got a huge advantage over the smaller boats. But then, of course, tactics come into play and general crew work over the weeks. Jerry?
Yes, and particularly when night comes on, sailing at night is so important. And they won't always have this beautifully clear, direct wind. They'll run into lighter wind.
Well, as we faded there from... So Aegis to the bottom of the screen being overtaken by a smaller boat. And in fact, that's Asse Plattner's Morning Glory. Tremendously lightly built, and so you can see her surfing very nicely just in front of Aegis.
We're getting ready for the start of the cruiser monohulls. They're all lining up to the start line at the moment while we're watching the IMS boats.
Oh, there's our
Spinnaker
first
gone.
speaker broken. That's
All right.
20,000 Rand. Thank you very much. Silly to pop a spinnaker so early in the race, but then we've got sewing machines on board, and the sailmaker will spend tonight sewing it up. That's Morning Glory. That's Morning Glory, yeah.
Not what they'd want.
So, you know, it's a bit silly. These spinnakers are made from different cloth weights, and perhaps the call was the wrong weight of cloth, from ½ ounce going up to 2.2 ounces. Then we've got the next off. The cruising monohull section.
Much more leisurely start. Some big boats, heavy boats.
Of course, Bertie Reid, our favourite for this one. He's sailing his BOC boat in this race.
So Bertie doesn't cruise.
Yeah.
No, he won't. He'll be up in the front in the line honours division, but he, of course, can't win that.
There you can see the start line where the monohulls are now in the cruising class crossing, setting off for Rio.
Jerry, there's a ketch rig boat. How do you fancy ketch rig boats?
Well,
two
ketch
masters
rigs
for
did
this?
awfully well in the Whitbread Round the Well race, did they not? At least in the 77 race.
Right.
But later they came back to sloops. That's the Gallus races. Derek Lawrence, skipper.
Then we've got the Shelly Ann Reality One, a veteran from the races up to Lisbon, and a number of people on board doing their first passage.
Well, we've been speaking about the sails and the equipment that they carry, but
in the cruising division, when we spoke about wing mast, it's aerofoils like much of an aeroplane without any stays. Then we've got the front runners, Parker Pen and Broomstick, and you can see Broomstick right up with Parker Pen now, proving that the wider boats are not that fast, dead downwind. Here they're sailing with the wind as far aft as possible to try to get the exact course on the initial stage of the voyage.
John, do you think in these early days she'll be trying to take her wind and going astern of her, or will she be on a separate course?
No, I think they'd be sailing for their own thing to get past Robben Island and then
Yes.
take up their course for the evening. I don't think match racing tactics at this stage.
For their off.
That's we have their Sea Rose, it's the favourite for the multi-hull class win, and he's hoping to be up in the front runners, but I doubt it.
You doubt?
I don't think he's going to beat Broomstick and those bigger monohulls where they sail area and beautiful clean waterlines.
Well, Chris King told me that they took this boat and developed and modified it specifically to win. As he said, you know, never mind winning handicaps, it's first across the line that's important.
No, Chris is an exceptional sailor. I've sailed, in fact, he did a Uruguay race with me once as watch captain for me, and he's a tremendous guy. But as I say, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
A small fleet, only...
Downwind, then there's nothing much to it, is there? Acceleration is phenomenal compared to a monohull. Any little puff of wind can change your speed up to 3 knots.
And we should wait for a puff of smoke any second now. There it goes. And the multi-hulls are on their way.
Start of the last class, and let's see how fast they catch up the cruising monohulls.
Well, it is your 70s, your 80s. And when you get to sea, is there any other sport where you have no newspapers, no televisions, no posts, no radio, and if you're wise, no alcohol? And you know, we heard a lot about cricket lately, but you see, if the weather gets bad, we can't put the heavy roller on. We don't stop when it rains. We don't stop at night. We don't stop after 5 days. We just go on. It's a beautiful sport.
That's probably the risk you run on an ocean crossing like this if you take inexperienced people along.
Well, yeah, but you've got to have a blend. You've got to teach somebody sometime. So you should try and blend in 2 youngsters, unexperienced, and then have the more experienced watch captains and sail trimmers and things like that. But certainly to develop this sport, we've got to get people on the water, and events like this will help. Also, another thing about this is it's a very expensive sport. Some of these boats up to 4 million Rand in cost. You can see the acceleration there of Chris King's Sea Rose. just walking away. He's got a longer boat than the others. It's some 3 or 4 foot longer, and he's an exceptional sailor, so he's really going along there beautifully.
Yes. According to the handicapper, he's due to get there in 18 days, compared with the minimum time of 15 and a half with Broomstick.
I think these guys, as I understood from Chris King, he's out to better Yui Long's time. He wants to get there under 17 days.
Well, there's nothing like determination to succeed. If it goes right for him, perhaps. You can see the boat, if you watch carefully, how she sort of lifts the weather hull now. Obviously, the first warning sign they're going to capsize is when that hull, you know, exceeds 1 or 2 foot out of the water.
Yes, they say there's no more stable vessel than a capsized catamaran.
Well, we're not going to see that this race, I hope, and I don't think.
He's actually outrun the other cats completely.
Tremendous weight coming out of there. I think that boat could be doing up to 16 knots right now.
Well, speaking about the new boats and the designs that they use.
Designs and new built boats from this country. In the long term, people need generally 2 to 3 years to build a boat. So I think we'll find that in future races, the next race in 3 years' time, we're going to see a lot of new boats in the smaller sizes, right down through to the 30-footers, through the whole fleet.
Well, the designers telling us about how they go about it. Interesting thing is that they're actually practicing what they preach, because they're all in the fleet.
Indeed, indeed.
Well, there we've got the Maltese going, and it'd be nice to see what's happening up in the front now. The chaps have had a good time to settle down, and we'd see the pecking order pretty soon. Wind seems to come and go, and not all. You can clearly see Broomstick's got the advantage. The yacht with the red spinnaker and the old witch in the middle has overtaken Parker Penn's, and there shouldn't really be an excuse for Parker Penn's not holding the lead, other than the fact that the boat could be a bit heavy and a bit wide. Broomstick's sailing exceptionally well. That's why she is the favorite for the race, and you can see the guy's incredible boat speed there. That distance could be even up to half a mile.
Sorry side, of course, the fact that Morning Glory is not up there with them, because I think they would have liked to be there.
Well, Morning Glory at 50 foot in length has got no chance at all of actually being in the front except on handicap.
What would be going through their minds at the moment, Jerry? Now the start is over and now we're settling down.
I think their principal worry will be to stay in the wind. The wind's got a terrible habit as you get north of Robben Island of suddenly opening out, a sort of Venturi effect, and it dies away, and evening coming on. And I think they'll be deciding, do I go off to the west or do I creep up the coast?
You can see Parker Penn coming up a little bit to port, in other words, the weather of Broomstick.
Yes.
This is a long-distance shot, so we can't really get the distance, and that's Nancy Challenge. Standing all by herself there. I don't see IGI. I'm not quite sure where she's in relation, but you can see how this fleet spreads out so quickly, and by tonight they won't even be in sight of each other, basically.
Well, with our boats on their way, it's time to say goodbye. A final word from you, John.
Well, it's a long way, 3,600 miles. It's going to be very exciting. I think the men with the most tenacity and the best leadership will come up and trumps,
Jerry?
and may the best
Well,
win.
I think my last word must be about the sea, and I think 3 passwords are vigilance, caution, humility.
And good luck to everybody, as we say. Bon voyage to the fleets on their way to Rio de Janeiro for the 1993 Rothmans Cape to Rio.